in the previous video, we have seen how we can use the Nginx official image to launch a web server and then copy our files related to our website into that web server and then let that Docker container serve up our website. Now, in this video, I want to show you how you can create your own custom image using the Docker build command, which allows you to create the custom image from which you can directly launch a Docker container which already contains all the files related to your web server. And once the container is launched, it just goes ahead and serves up your website. So to do that, we will use the Docker build command, reference to which is right behind me. And the link to this will be in the description of this video. In order to build an image, you need to create a Dockerfile that contains a set of instructions which the Docker build command uses to construct the image. So to do that, let's open the folder containing our website in a editor. In this case, I have the folder open in Visual Studio Code. So in this folder, let's go ahead and create a file named Dockerfile. So that's the name of the file. This is the default name for the file that you will use for the Docker build command. Now in this Dockerfile, we will start by saying, okay, build an image starting from an existing image on the Docker Hub. We don't have to always start from scratch. And in this case, for us, fortunately, we already have the Nginx image available on Docker Hub. So to do that, we will say from command in Docker specifies that you start building your image starting from that as the base image. So the base image in this case is going to be Nginx, and we will use the latest version of Nginx. Now that's the first command. So we are saying, okay, we'll start with that as the base image. After that, obviously, you realize that you need the website files in that container. So to do that, we'll use the second command, copy, and copy allows you to copy a source set of files into a destination folder. So in this case, the source would be the local folder from which I'm copying. So I'll say copy dot, which if you know Unix, refers to the current working directory or the local folder. So copy dot, copy this to user /share /nginx/html. So this is the destination folder in the image that we're going to create where these files need to be copied. Now, the third part is that from this container that we are launching, we want to expose a specific port number. And here in this case, since this is a web server, the web server will be running at port number 80. So I will say expose 80. You actually don't need to specify this. By default, the Nginx image already exposes port number 80. But to illustrate to you how you expose a particular port from an image, we will specify that explicitly here. And the last part is that when the container is launched, we want a particular command to be executed in that container. So this command, we will specify it by saying cmd. The cmd takes an executable file which will launch when the container is launched. So in this case, the executable file is going to be specified as an array with all the parts of the command line expressed as strings there. And so first part of the command that I launch is Nginx. The second part is -g. And the last one I specify is daemon off. Now, if you want to know why we use this, you can consult the Nginx Docker images documentation and understand exactly why this command is being used here. So now for the moment, I'll not digress into explaining why we issue this command, but you can read that in the Nginx image documentation. So this is the last part. So now we have completed creating the Dockerfile. Now, when docker build command is executed, it is going to use these instructions in this Dockerfile in order to build our image. Now, if your folder contains certain files that you don't want to include in the image, then you can specify that in a file called .docker-ignore. If you know Git, you know how git ignore works. Docker ignore works in a similar way. In the .docker-ignore file, I'm going to specify that I don't want to include I don't want to copy the Docker file into the image because it serves no purpose there. You only want to copy the website related files into the image there. So once we have done this, let's save these files. So we have our Docker file, that contains all the instructions to prepare the image, and then the Docker ignore, which specifies that I don't want to copy the Docker file into the containers image. Once we have completed that, let's go ahead and build the image. To do that, let's go to the terminal. Going to the terminal, at the prompt, say docker build, and then we want to tag this image that we're going to build with a specific name. So in my case, I'm going to tag it as -t, and then I will specify my Docker Hub ID there. Now, you don't use my Docker Hub ID. You will replace jmupala with your Docker Hub ID, obviously. And then the second part is, we'll say confusion. And then I will also give an additional tag as 1.0, the first version of this tag. So docker build -t jmupala confusion 1.0, or in your case, it'll be docker build -t. -t stands for the tag that you want to give the Docker image. If you don't give a tag, then you will need to use the Docker images image ID, which is not very user-friendly or convenient. So that's why it is better to give it a specific tag like this. And also one other reason why I give the tag with my Docker Hub ID, which you will also use your Docker Hub ID, is that if you push this image to your Docker Hub account to share it with others, then it will be pushed into your Docker Hub account. And so if anybody downloads that image from your Docker Hub account, then they will know where this image came from. So that's one of the reasons also why we use the Docker Hub ID there. Now, again, reminding you, use your Docker Hub ID there. And the last part that the docker build command requires is a context. Context being the set of files, in particular, what is the folder in which you're building this image. And in this case, the folder is the current folder. And so we will just say dot, because we are already in the Docker confusion folder. So essentially saying, use all the files in there. So when the docker build command executes, it is going to be supplied with all the contents of this particular folder, so that when it builds the image, it has access to all the contents of this folder. You can also specify the context to be a different folder if you so choose to, but let's keep it simple for the moment because we are just beginning to understand how to use Docker. Let's go ahead and execute the docker build command. So once you do that, the first step, as you see in the set of steps, it says sending build context to Docker daemon. So what it is doing is it is sending the entire set of files in this particular folder to the Docker daemon, so that the Docker daemon then makes use of the files in this folder when it is building the image. And remember, one of the commands in the Docker file was to copy the contents of this folder into the user share Nginx HTML folder in the image there. Now, after that, you see that the first step it does is it tries to access the Nginx image. If that image doesn't exist on your computer, then it will be downloaded from the server side. But since we have already executed or downloaded the Nginx image in the previous video, it's already available for me. So it's going to go ahead and use that from the local cache. Then after that, the second step, it copies the files into the folder. Then it makes sure that port number 80 is exposed. So it builds an intermediate container using that. And then after that, it knows that this command needs to be executed. So it builds the final container using that, and then tags the container with that name. Now, to make sure that my image has been built, so let me go ahead and say Docker images, and then you will see that indeed the Docker image with that particular tag has been built there. Now let's go ahead and launch that Docker image and create a container from that. So to do that, at the prompt, type docker run -dp, again, you know why, 8080:80 -- name confusion, and specify the name of the image there. And let's go ahead and launch that image. Oh, if you happen to have an image already running with that name, obviously you will see that message from the Docker daemon. And indeed, I had launched the Nginx image earlier. So let me go ahead and stop that using the Docker desktop. This was an intentional mistake so that you see what you might encounter if you don't stop an existing container. So I'm going to use my GUI to stop the existing container, so that is gone. Let's go ahead and launch the container one more time. And now this container with the image that we have just created has been launched. Let's go to the browser and then load this into the browser. Going to the browser, let me type in localhost :8080, and you would see that your Confusion site is being served up by the Docker container, as you would expect. So there you go. You have just created your very first custom container. Congratulations. Remember to stop the container after we finish this video, and then remove the container.